Hello, boys and girls. For the record, this is the NAO show. You are on the right show. I am the Prince. That's Tank Top Mike, and that's Marky Mark. We're gonna keep on breaking down the draft for this year. We're gonna go into the second round. Welcome to the show, boys.
Cheers. Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, for the record, we're gonna, we're taking it a little slower this year with the draft. I think it was kind of a loaded draft. I was looking at the last couple of years in the second round, and there were some good players there. But I looked at this year's, and I'm like, man, it just seems like all these guys are good. So we'll see how the hit rate does compared to others. But for the record, I like this. I like this doing this second round solo.
I just want to stop everybody, but like 2 months ago, everyone was saying how bad this draft was gonna be, and as soon as the rookie draft actually gets here, everybody's like, "Ooh, look at all these guys in the third and fourth round."
Well, I think for the record, I think the Superflex community may have, and Evan pointed this out in chat, and I think it's actually a good point. The Superflex community was talking about that, and I think it leaked into one quarterback. So draft wasn't bad for us, but
Yeah, yeah. For the record.
Just because there isn't 7 first round quarterbacks, that does not make a draft bad for Dynasty. I mean, there was like 10 to 15 good position players in this draft that could be the make or break in any team. So
I think what people forgot a little bit, maybe overlooked, I'll say, maybe not forgot, but overlooked, was that with the COVID and some of the guys skipping years and staying on extra, we had some older guys coming out in this draft, and I think we had more guys coming out in this draft. I think that was a big part of it, was that there was just more talent in one year than you would normally see because of the COVID deal. So,
well, I mean, the last 2 years, the talent coming out was just astronomical. Like, I hate when people use the catchword of generational talent, but there was some really, really good athletes coming out last year and the year before that. And when you're comparing this year to next year, those 2 years, we'll see how this one holds up. But they got some big shoes to fill. They have an extra game, so let's go.
sure, next year will be fun.
all right, well, before we kick off the draft talk, we're going to talk about one trade that happened in the league. Glad to see people trading again, makes things fun. So we had a deal involving Derrick Henry. So we had a big one between Humpty and the DBs. So the DBs received the aforementioned Derrick Henry and a 2023 second, which was Sean's pick originally. Humpty received 2023 first rounder, which was his own pick, a 2023 second rounder, which is FNG's, a 2024 third rounder, which is Tank Top Mike. So both Mike and Sean involved in this trade indirectly. And then the last piece that Humpty got was a 2024 fourth rounder, which was Dylan. So one of you guys start us off and tell us what you think about this trade.
Well, I don't have much to say about this trade, about the trade directly. I think it's a good trade for Humpty. I mean, getting a first round pick for Derrick Henry and some extra picks. You got a whole draft class in 2 years, so one player. But my real question is this the year that the DBs actually get a trade and it actually benefits them and gets them out of the cellar?
Yeah, I mean AJ Brown no longer a Titan, so like, do they have to have a premier offensive Titan player on their team? So they had to do this, maybe.
It looks that way, Tank Top Mike. It looks like that. I mean, they went out, they got their premier running back. They did have the wide receiver. He gets traded to Philadelphia, and then they go out and get Derrick Henry on a pretty nice deal for them. Like, I think if this was in the middle of the season and Derrick Henry was still on the block, they probably would have went for twice that much. But we'll see if the underdogs can actually get a trade in the offseason and it benefits them enough in the season. Every year at this time of the year, we were looking at the DB's lineup going, man, they got a really, really strong lineup. They got to be in the top 4, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So they go ahead, Mike.
I think my thought on the actual trade a little bit more. I think if you're going to trade for Derrick Henry, right now is a pretty good time to do it. His value is only going to go up. Like you said, once he
Yeah.
starts playing, and he stiff arms one guy straight into the dirt, like you add a first rounder for every time he does it. So if you're going to do it, now's the time. And every one of us, I'm pretty sure, has like you want Derrick Henry on your team, you just don't want to pay for it. And I feel like with the draft capital the underdogs have still in the next year and what they gave up here, they basically gave up some draft capital only and got Derrick Henry. And that's the way to do
Yeah,
it.
and I mean, looking at it from Humpty's point of view, Derrick Henry wasn't going to carry his whole team to the
Yeah,
playoffs like he
yeah. I was
does
gonna say
an
that's the other
actual
side of it. Is
NFL team. But
that's a pretty good one for him too. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it made sense for both of them. Like, the DBs are this really underperforming team that just gets hurt one way or the other, it seems like every year. And now you're looking at their team, and if this was 3 years ago, we'd all just be sending all of our entry money to the DBs because they have CMC, Derrick Henry, like you got those two people on the same team. Like, what? This is supposed to be a competitive league, and you allowed this to happen. Like, if this is 2 years ago, I just start sending my entry money to the DBs because they're gonna run away with it. But
Well, if Silly Dilly's luck starts over clean at the new year, I think do the underdogs or no? Because this is year 3.
yeah, I want to say yes because I want to say like everybody has a good feel for the Dynasty Pro platform and is going to make good trades to be competitive every year. And I mean, DBs do it. I mean, Evan's trying to wheel and deal every day, twice on Sunday, and just never pans out for him. I feel your pain. At least I'm not in the bottom 4 every year, but I'm 5th every year, so I know how it is.
Well, this is going to be one of those if trades. So if they have CMC and Henry healthy for a good stretch, they're definitely going to be. Those guys are going to score. If they're healthy, they're going to score. They're going to score
Yeah.
points,
About
and it's going
40
to be a
points a
big
week.
boost for
Yeah.
them. If one of them at a time stays healthy, if they can have one of them either between CMC and Henry in there, and the other one maybe not for whatever reason, they still get a payoff out of it. So I think it was a good move for them. They still have first rounders in 23. The fact they got a second rounder back in 23 to me was pretty good for them because that's a high round pick, and a year ago you would have been giving up multiple firsts probably for Henry, but now you're able to get a second rounder back. That's kind of nice.
Not just
So,
any second rounder. Pick 5
Yeah.
in the second round.
Yeah, maybe 6 this year. Maybe 6. I don't know. Who cares? But no. Who cares for the record? But I like what Humpty got. I think it was what he got was more what he needs. He got some picks for next year, and got some picks for moving into 24. Looks like he's already trying to jockey for position there in 24 as well. So I think he knows that he's got to. He doesn't have a horrible roster, but he's got to improve on it. So we'll see if he's burning it down again or if he's going to play the slow game, just try to get some picks together and compete in the next couple of years a little heavier. So, all right, well, guys, we'll move on to the draft talk. We do have one trade that occurred that had 3 picks from the second round. So I'm gonna name it off now. We won't go into it a lot now, but when we get to the last pick in that round, we'll go back over this a little more. But we had before this round uh, got going, we had Goofy Jace and the Pooh Crew making a trade. So Goofy Jace got Darren Waller, pick 18, and a 2023 fifth rounder. Pooh Crew got Donald Parham, pick 12, pick 16, and a 2023 third. Just real quick, I'd say, I think Goofy was sitting there looking at all the picks he had and realizing he was going to have to do a lot of churning the roster if he picked them all. So this is probably a good move for him to go, negative, -1 net to be able to get a player he wanted in Waller. So as far as that, I think Waller being a little bit older, I don't know that I would have invested as much in him, but I think that was his guy. He gave Perrin back to Poo Crew, which kind of replaces Waller with a younger guy that's got some good upside. So on the surface, I kind of liked it for Poo Crew a little bit better. What do you guys think?
Well, Goofy had the need to go get a tight end. I don't know how you feel, Tank Top Mike, but I think Vegas is going to be a darn good team this year. Uh, even with adding Adams at wide receiver and knowing that he's going to demand a higher target rate than other wide receivers. If he gets Renfro's target share, Waller's still going to ball if he stays healthy and gets the looks that he normally gets. I think it was a good pickup for Goofy.
Yeah, I think so too. I think I kind of agree with you though, Mark, that Waller's obviously getting up there a little bit. But when you talk about tight ends, I think he's still probably the bottom of that top tier of tight ends. And for Goofy, Gronk is technically not playing football next year, so he went from no tight end to Waller technically. So then if Gronk comes back and does his usual stuff, who knows? Maybe Goofy will be the one flexing in a second tight end this year instead of Ian.
Yeah, I'm always okay with taking a guy that's a little bit older that maybe someone wants to dump that I think can still get some good production. So I think that he's still got some football left in him. Last year was the first year he really dealt with injuries much though. So and with the age, you have to be kind of a little bit cautious there. But if he can stay healthy another year and put together a good year, it's going to help Goofy. And he's got Fryermuth there that's coming up to speed. So it's sort of a bridge to.
He's good.
Yeah.
He's a good coal in the fire for sure.
Yeah, so it's a good bridge to Fryermuth. We'll call it that. So
Goofy just got lucky that I didn't know that Waller was on the block. I didn't know I could trade for him. I would have paid 2-3 times this easy. I just didn't know. Ian failed to tell me that Waller was tradable. So
wow.
For the record, I would have been in. So
that seems like he missed out there.
Yeah.
And I've been told that the record would show that Waller has had a couple years not playing football, so he is football age younger than his actual age, which is a total, for the record, bullshit. But
yeah, I'd have to agree. He may not have all those miles on the legs, but he's still got that age on those legs. So it catches up with you, unfortunately. All right, well, let's get into the second round. We pull up the draft board, and we will start with pick number 11, which was George Pickens, wide receiver for Pittsburgh. That's my pick. It was my first pick in the draft. I really like getting Pickens. Got 4 dynasty leagues, and this is the only one I have him in. It's maybe a little bit risky. He fell to the second round. He's probably a first round type of talent. He dealt with the injury. There's some talk about some attitude problems. The fact that he went to Pittsburgh, I like the fact that he's there with Tomlin because I think he'll get his head screwed on straight. So if he can live up to the potential, I think it could be a good pick. It's one of those where you hold your breath a little bit because he could flame out and do something stupid, kind of like Claypool. Seems like he's fallen out of favor with the
earmuffs.
Yeah, sorry, buddy. Sorry. Hey, that doesn't mean he won't keep playing, but maybe his days are numbered there. But we'll see if Pickens can get his head screwed on straight, as they say, and live up to the potential that he had a couple of years ago, where they were talking about him as a number one receiver.
Well, I mean, the talk about number one wide receivers found it. I mean, he's 6'3", 200 pounds, coming out of Georgia. You know, like everything's kind of going his way, and if the off the field stuff is what took him out of like the number one wide receiver off the board kind of category, I guess. It is what it is, but he's going to be in a committee, obviously, because Deontay Johnson's there, Chase is still there, and he's going to be probably wide receiver 3. We'll just see what small hands Pickett wants to throw to. So
I think
he hits this year, and maybe he hits next year. Who knows?
I think these guys will be fun to watch because this year, who knows? Obviously, Deontay Johnson's pretty talented. Claypool's, this is going to sound like a homer thing, but Claypool's the best athlete of all of them, just pure athletic, profile
True.
and stuff. But
True.
Yeah,
and Pickens is incredible. But so it'll be fun to watch and what shakes out this year. And but I think in as the Claypool guy in this league, I'll be interested in next year and see what shakes out with Deontay Johnson and the Steelers.
Good point, Tank Top. If he leaves, like Chase and Pickens can definitely be a 1-2 punch that's on the cheap for Pittsburgh. Both on rookie deals. Their quarterback on a rookie deal. I mean, that's the making of a pretty good, darn good defense. If you ask me, like they're gonna go out and spend a bunch of money on defense because they're not spending it on offense. Their running back will still be on a rookie deal. Like,
yeah, they could be.
Everybody's up. Look over here. Pittsburgh's like, we're coming for you.
They better spend a little bit on an offensive lines, but
yeah,
ain't that the truth?
Yeah. But yeah, Deontay's in his last year. Claypool, I think, has got 2 years left on his deal. Probably, good wake-up call for Claypool. So maybe he matures a little bit and doesn't do some of the stupid stuff he did last year, and he can stay there. And then they've got 2 boundary guys that could really just take the top off the defense, as the saying goes.
Evan put it really nicely. How much of a kick to the chest was it to have Chase Claypool do the pick for Pickens?
Yeah. Yeah, we want you to do it. You're face of the organization. We want you to be out there and announce our pick. And he gets the car and he's like, "What the?"
Welcome to the team.
Yeah. He did it. Hey, he soldiered through, man. God,
Yeah.
They didn't have a frog in a throat or anything, man. I might have been like George Pickens, wide receiver. Oh. All right. Well, let's go on to the second pick, which was involved in that trade. So this was Ian getting pick number 12 from Goofy, and he picked Christian Watson, wide receiver, Green Bay. Why don't you start us off, Tank Top?
Yeah, I think it does kind of look or change the way a little bit. You're looking at that Goofy trade now. If you actually put in a player profile and future like Watson into that, then suddenly Waller's age is maybe a little bit more of a concern and stuff. But I think for an early second round pick, getting Watson here is pretty nice. Obviously, we were all looking at who is the Chiefs going to pick and who are the Packers going to pick, because we know they're going to wide receiver. So that automatically put both of them probably late first, early second, no matter what. And I think Watson there with Rodgers at least for 1 year. I think in Green Bay you never know what's going to happen with Rodgers, and then what? They're not going to find another Hall of Fame quarterback after 3 in a row after Rodgers. But same thing like we talked about with the Steelers, well-run organization. Watson's going to have a nice season. Probably going to be looking pretty good there for a while as they're one. So nice pick in the early round.
I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. Robert Tonyan is going to have a rebirth in Green Bay for 17 touchdowns.
And you're not just saying that because we have him rostered in another.
I may or may not have
league.
stock in Robert Tonyan, but
Well, for the record,
I have no idea who. Like, we haven't seen Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers, that is, without Adams in so long. We have no idea what he looks like without Adams. You know, like within 10 yards of the end zone, everybody and their grandmother knew that it was going to be a slant route to Adams. So who's the guy that Rodgers is going to throw to now? It could literally be anybody. You have no like. I say Tunyon because he's probably the one person that is on the team that has shown that Rodgers will throw to him. So who knows?
That's a
Randall
good
Cobb.
well, as I started to say, for the record, Watson was on my radar there too. I'll give you the other side. I'll be the devil's advocate here with Watson. You know, he tested so well, really good athlete. Of course, he did play at the smaller school. He wasn't playing against as good competition. I just wonder, you know, Rodgers. We all know what a diva he is. Is he going to be able to build up a rapport with Rodgers quickly enough? And I think history says no.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on that point, Rodgers is such a diva to the point he might just hold a grudge, be like, "Oh, you wanted to wait this long to get me a wide receiver? Just for that, I'm not going to throw to him ever." You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you know, being a second round pick, they're going to want to get him involved in the offense, and they'd be smart to figure out ways to get the ball in his hand. But I can see, like you say, Tunyon being maybe the red zone end zone guy. I could see Lazard being targeted more than Watson just because he's got a rapport with him, and Lazard's kind of in a last year. You know, he signed. He's an undrafted free agent, so they did a contract where if someone would have signed them, they would have gotten compensation. So that shows that they've got a little bit of confidence in Lazard, and they wanted to keep him around if they could. You know, they weren't going to go crazy, but and they signed him to a 1 year decent deal. So I think he could still be relevant here. So to me, Watson seems like one of those guys. He can boom really big. He can bust really big. It might be somewhere in between because he is a good athlete, and they got to try to get the ball in his hands if they're investing a second round pick and trying to get that another Super Bowl before Rodgers is gone there. You know.
Mhm.
So, all right. If we don't have any more on Watson, we'll move on. Moving on.
Elementary analysis on Dear Watson. Ha.
We need the rim shot thing, but we need to get that. We got to get that sound effect. All right, pick number 3 in the second round was the DBs, picking John Mechie, wide receiver, Houston. John,
So
yeah,
for this pick is interesting
okay,
because like so there's 3 things that I look at when I'm evaluating rookies is half the playing time, their build, and what school they come from, right?
Okay.
Mr. Mitchie comes from, am I saying that right?
Mechie.
He comes from Alabama, check on school, path to playing time. I mean, he's got to beat out players like Chris Moore, Nico Collins. Shoot, he could even beat out Brandon Cooks, maybe the shadow of Brandon Cooks. And then you look at his build; he's only 5'11", inch taller than me, and 187 pounds. The guy that went in this draft, Watson, 6'3", 200 pounds. You know what I mean? Like his build isn't all that great. So it's kind of interesting that he went third in the second round here, because of that path to playing time. So I think this is a boom bust pick too, but we'll see. It could happen.
The size thing I think is interesting, and there's another player taken in this round that the size was a knock on him as well, and I think, and maybe I'm being wrong here, but I think we overthink the size a little bit too much. I think.
Well, I mean, there's been fantastic slot receivers that weren't that big.
And then you get
And
Kelvin
Tom
Benjamin, who went to
Brady and-
Ponderosa before the every game, and
Yeah,
Well,
but
he's-
Tom Brady and freaking big forehead over there and freaking Manning isn't throwing to these guys, so we'll see.
I guess
Yeah,
I don't hate the pick. Obviously, I think the coolest part about this pick is it ended a 4 wide receiver run, which I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, I think he went a little early. I think with his injury, the fact that he's going to be playing later. I mean, just like Jameson Williams, you're gonna pick him because he's good, and this guy too. But I probably would have been looking at him more, maybe late second, early third. And that's why I kind of figured I would never be in on him because I thought he'd go earlier than I was willing to pick him.
Well, you're probably right, but to go back into last week, the DBs had 3 first-round picks, so this pick was kind of a luxury pick.
Yeah.
So they reach on a guy that has a high ceiling. They didn't have a later pick. Their next pick was in the middle of the 3rd round, and I think they moved into that position. They didn't even have it when they made this pick. So,
we didn't talk about all the trades just involving picks, and that was probably one of them, one of the many. But you're right. It's probably a luxury pick.
You bring up the luxury pick, and they had a lot early. They went wide receiver, running back, wide receiver with 4 picks in the first 13. Maybe I kind of brought up that I thought there was a pretty big talent drop off, after that Rashad White, James Cook, so maybe that's why you go wide receiver there. But I think, at this point, it's maybe a toss up. I think some of the running backs that went immediately after, I think it was still too early for them too. But so I think at this point in the draft, it's almost a hard tier break of sort of just get your guy at this point. If they like the talent profile there, then that's how I would think about it here anyway.
Very true. It was in that area, in that general area where it's starting to get to where it is a tier break. That's a good point there. I look at a few guys that went after I might have taken before Mechie, but can't say it's a terrible pick there. I think he's got some talent, and I think he can be good. And Sean, you're exactly right. You got an aging Brandon Cooks. Nico Collins was a 3rd round pick, so they have, that's decent draft capital for Nico Collins. But
it's a 2nd round pick, though.
Yeah, Mechie's a 2nd round pick. I think he profiles more as a slot guy, and Nico's more of a boundary X or Y guy. So, I think they may just been complimenting Nico there, but Cooks is still going to be. It's going to be hard. Cooks is just too good. As long as he's on the field and healthy, he's going to get his targets. But for how much longer? It doesn't seem like he's going to be there much longer. It could be a final year for him, and Mechie be the guy of the future. So I think it was a good volume move. It could be a good volume move for them to pick him there.
We also only took wide receivers in the 3rd round, or with the 3rd pick of every round this year.
There you go. Look at that.
For the
I'm
record,
looking at it right now.
Yeah.
For the record, we have 5 third picks in each. The 3rd pick in each round. Wow, interesting, man. It's pretty cool. Pretty good names there too. If you're looking at it, Burks, Mechie, Thornton, Jones, Velus Jones, and Justin Ross. But we'll get into those guys later. So let's move on. Moving on to pick number 4 in the 2nd round. We have Sean picking Damian Pierce, running back, Houston. So we'll let you start it off, Sean.
This is completely a team need pick. Right here in the 2nd round, this is kind of where this stuff starts happening, like team needs. If I was looking at wide receiver, I would have probably been looking at the wide receivers that went 18 and 19, but I'm pretty strong at wide receivers right now, and I just needed the running back depth, so I took the best running back on the board still. And, the path to playing time is pretty good. I mean, he has 2 proverbial running back twos in front of him. So he could go in there as a big back. He's over 200 pounds. He could be a 3-down back maybe.
That's NAO champion Rex Burkhead you're talking about. So put some respect on the man's ACLs because at least he's got two of them, unlike Marlon Mack.
Yeah, until he's gone, or at least until after this year, we have to put some respect on his name. So,
but it is a good point. I do agree with
Rex Burkhead.
I do agree.
Who better to learn under than a league-winning running back, veteran running back? So,
but I do agree with the point. You talk about a running back getting some early opportunities, and he's probably going to get some. So I look at these three running backs right here, and I think the only other one, there's only one other I may have picked up, but I think if you're looking for a guy that's going to contribute immediately, I think Pierce is the right way to go.
Yeah, I mean, the writing is on the wall with CEH. There's no way of knowing what kind of production I'm going to get out of him because Kansas City loves to make my life miserable and use every other running back the way that they should use CEH and not use it the right way. So, but I've been on the record on that with plenty of times though.
Well, I like to pick. We picked him number 9 in a secret draft, and
secret squirrel draft.
Yeah. Can't say anymore, but we did pick him number 9 in this secret draft, and that was high. That was a little bit too high, and it was the same thing. Team need, looking for a guy who can play right away, but I did have him as my number 3 running back in the rankings right after Hall and Walker. You picked him where he's kind of generally going, early to mid second round, and I think he's a steal there. I think he could be a 3-down back and their number 1 guy. I think they'll give Matt some work. I don't think they brought him in for nothing, but I think Pierce was kind of an insurance in case Mac just doesn't get back to where he was before the Achilles injury. So Mac is a guy I'm pulling for. But as someone who has Damian Pierce in a couple of leagues, he could be a committee, and let me at least flex old Damian there for now. But I think he could go over.
As a rookie coming in, it's very rare if you're not a top running back in a dynasty draft that you're gonna take over the backfield your rookie year right from game 1. Like Cam Akers is a good example. He was kind of slow at the beginning of his rookie year, but by the end of his rookie year, it was 100% his backfield.
Yeah.
Swift, I want to say Swift was kind of like that without looking at his beginning of his rookie year, but
yeah, somewhat.
Another fantastic running back that it is on a pretty good team. So
yeah. Now these guys have to learn how to pass protect, and that's kind of what gives the slow start a lot of times because they just got to come off the field till they get up to speed, So we'll see. He gets a good. Damian Pierce has a good pass protection grade, though. So I think he got one that could play right away and be on the field a lot. So I like the pick there, man. Really do. All right, let's move on to pick number 5 in the second round. This is Goofy Jace. This was not part of the trade, but this is his pick at 2-5. Is Isaiah Spiller, running back from LA Chargers. Sorry, guys, I was a little slow on that. Start us off, Mikey.
I think, pick's fine, whatever. I think this one's cool. It's a super lesson in keeping updated on your dynasty ranks. Not even from just the current draft class, but further back than that. I don't know if you guys remember. At one point, Isaiah Spiller was going 1-1. It wasn't long ago really that Isaiah Spiller was if not 1-1, 1-2, and then suddenly
pre-NFL draft, I guess, right?
Yeah, it would have been early, like probably when he was still in school, and right after. And when he committed to the draft, he was up there in running back rankings, and now here we are, picking him at 2.5, and that seems to be where he went. In most drafts, unless you really kind of reached for him for like a team need or something. But it's kind of interesting. You kind of talk about keeping updated with your rankings and who's moving where, and Spiller's a pretty good reason why. I think he had a terrible combine. I think.
Well, he didn't actually do the combine. He was hurt. He
Mhm.
did. And sorry, Mike, I just correcting a little bit. He did pro day.
Yeah.
And he did terrible there. So you're right. He didn't test well. They said he was hurt. He didn't do the combine. Then he does the pro day, has a bad one, and says, "Oh, I'm still a little bit hurt." So why'd you do it, man? I mean, if you really were injured, then why do you do it? So to me, it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I think it's a good pick for Goofy though. Like thinking of the dynasty team to take a flyer after drafting Hall 101, and then he's got Spiller as a high ceiling guy. The only thing that I don't like about it is that he's behind a really, really good running back in Eckler.
I actually think that
Eckler.
I actually think that helps Spiller a little bit. I mean, if you're gonna, it's the same thing, with some other guys. I can't remember who we talked about, but if you're gonna fall in the draft, you may as well land on the Chargers. And if he's hurt, or if he was hurt, and he was projected as a pretty high athlete, sitting behind a guy like Eckler, and Eckler's not a volume guy. He's on the field for, 50, 65% of the plays at most. So there's a pretty good committee behind him. So Spiller's the good athlete that he was projected to be, and he's not going to be relied on to be the starter. If you're going to fall, go there. I think it's worked out for him a little bit.
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
I'd trade him.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, I kind of call him the yo-yo man, not to be confused with Yo-Yo Ma or Yo Mama, but yeah, he was kind of a yo-yo. He was kind of a consensus 3 before the NFL draft. Well, before he tested, let's say he was kind of a consensus 3. Some of them were putting him above Walker because they liked his pass catching skills, and Walker really doesn't have a history of that. So there was a lot of people that had him kind of in the same tier with Breece Hall even. Then he tests horribly and drops like a rock, and you thought, okay, yeah, he might be 3rd round guy in rookie drafts. Then he goes to the Chargers, and you see, that Eckler is not a workhorse guy. He gets most of his production is in the receiving game, and they need a guy that can run the ball and give him some rest. They don't need to overwork Eckler, especially getting older now. So he lands in the Chargers, and now he's back up again. I think he's being picked about where he should be. I think Cook was going higher because people are seeing a quicker path to playing time, like you said there, Sean. Spiller may be a 1A, 1B kind of guy, but yeah, he jumped right back up there, and I think he's talented. I think he might be a good football player. He might not have tested well, but I think he's a good football player, and I think he'll be good for Goofy moving forward. Well, let's move on to pick number 6 in the 2nd round. This one was involved in that trade between Goofy Jace and the Pooh Crew. The Pooh Crew with this pick took Tyler Algier, running back, Atlanta. What are your thoughts, guys?
Yeah, you talk about path to playing time. The guy's probably going to play because he's got to. They don't. Mike Davis is gone, and who else? Who else is even? Cordell Patterson's probably the only other guy and Kyle Pitts are touching the ball. Oh, okay. There's a lot of other players in the backfield.
In the backfield, and they traded Davis after they drafted him, so it's sort of that's kind of a, that's a vote of confidence for him right there.
Yeah, I mean, he has a clear path to playing time. Here at 16, it's a pretty slam dunk of a pick. So.
Yeah, I like the pick there. I think that's a good place to get him, and I think there's nothing. He doesn't jump off the page with athleticism, but he had some good production. It is with BYU, so we've seen other guys come in from some schools in that conference that had some good production that didn't translate so well at NFL. But I kind of have a feeling this guy's going to. I feel like he's going to be a good one. I didn't get him in any of my rookie drafts. Somebody I wanted to get, but he ended up jumping up higher there going to Atlanta, and it was tough for me to get him. You know, I had him just behind some other guys, and I ended up getting those guys instead of Algier. But I like this pick right here for Ian.
He's a guy that if anybody traded with Ian at any point ever, I'd expect him to have a few good games, and Ian would trade him. But he's stuck with him because
All right. We didn't have too much talk on Algier. Let's move forward. At pick number 7 in the second round, McJammer, that would be me, took Trey McBride, tight end, Arizona. Before I talk about it, I really want to get your guys' thoughts. I think, Sean, I think you said, did you tell me it was a bold pick or interesting?
No,
I think you said it was interesting.
Interesting pick because obviously McBride is the top-rated tight end coming out of this class, and he went to Arizona. You would think that that's kind of a downslide, but I don't think it's a downslide because I don't think Ertz has very many years left, and it always takes maybe 1 or 2 years for a tight end to start hitting, and if Murray stays there and you keep Murray on your team, you might have like a little stack going on in there, which I'm sure you were already contemplating. So
yeah, of course.
that's why it was interesting to me. Is like if everything falls right, this could be a sneaky good pick in the middle to late round of the second round.
I think this was one of my favorite picks in the draft because McBride has my favorite stat. He had it's something like a 38% dominator rating, which is the coolest stat that we have ever come up with. Fuck every stat in baseball. Football's got a dominator stat, and McBride tests off the charts, especially for a tight end. 30-something, 40% dominator. Great.
Well, I mean, he's like 6'3", 249 pounds. I mean, they're going, wait, that guy's blocking me?
He was the offense for Colorado State this year too, so I can see those numbers being high. For me, the stack was in mind. I think it could go one of two ways. At the Senior Bowl, now they said that the cornerback said that Watson was the best receiver that they played. I forgot to mention that earlier when we talked about Watson, but they voted him as the toughest guy to cover, But a lot of people that went to the Senior Bowl thought that McBride might have been the best receiver, not just receiving tight end, but the best receiver there. They said that just the good route runner, catching everything, just seems to have a good football IQ. So I could see if they wanted it, they could if he is that, they can have him on the field in 4 receiver sets, not necessarily line up tight end. And so he could have some, and he didn't catch a lot of touchdowns, but of course, they were doubling him up and everything else, but he caught a lot of balls anyway. That's one thing. That was the one knock on him. Well, he didn't catch a lot of touchdowns, but like I said, he was the offense. So you get in the red zone and you just make sure you double cover him, But the other way I could see it going is they still have Max Williams there. I think he's overlooked. He's good. Max Williams could be a top tight end on another team that use the tight end more. And Ertz is still there, like you said, but he is aging out, and I think injuries are starting to catch up with him a little bit, So he could be behind those guys in an offense where they don't use the tight end a lot, or he could be maybe the guy that they can put out there that's a Kyle Pitts type. I'm not trying to compare him to Pitts, but I'm saying that he can do those type of things. He's not the same athlete at Pitts, but I think he can do those same type of things. He can split out wide. He can line up in the slot, and he can be a good receiver. And so maybe it's kind of with Nuke being out, I'm just kind of interested to see what happens early. He'll stay on my taxi squad for right now, but the tight ends, like you said, they need to marinate some. So that's where he is for now. But I'm interested to see how they start using him early on.
I bet you Pitt's dominator rating isn't 40. So
Yeah, yeah. All right. I guess we'll move on to the next pick. Moving through pretty quickly tonight. We got pick number 8 in the second round was part of that trade. So we'll talk about the pick and then we'll recap that trade. So we had Goofy Jace picking Alec Pierce, wide receiver, Indianapolis.
This was, if I was going to go wide receiver at my spot, it was going to pick this guy. I loved this guy. He was played on Cincinnati in college. His last year, Cincinnati was a very, very good team, as we all know. Very good team. He had like almost 900 yards, 8 touchdowns. And when I saw this kid play, I can call him kid because he's definitely a lot younger than I am. He was making some corners look like they were in high school and some safeties wishing they were still in high school. You know what I mean? This guy is really, really good. 6'3", just over 200 pounds. I mean, he could be really, really good in Indianapolis because there isn't much of a second wide receiver there. Obviously, if I had to pick between Alec Pierce and Pittman, I think we all know where I stand on Michael Pittman. He was worth a first-round pick when I traded him, Tank Top. Never again.
It wasn't me. I didn't do that.
Yeah, I know. The manager did it. Alec Pierce, great pickup, Goofy.
Yeah, I like this pick here too. I think Pierce will be fine there. I think, like you said, there's not much behind Pittman. I do like Pittman a lot, but any receiver help behind him, I think helps not only Pittman a little bit, but the whole offense too.
Yeah.
And obviously they have Matt Ryan there. He's old, but he's still got a few seasons left, and I think that elevates that offense over Wentz from last year. So
Yeah, I definitely agree.
a guy like Pierce there, I think he can do well, and I think to get him this late in the second, I think it's a pretty good pick because after you talk about a tier break, at wide receiver, at the end of the second here, I think is a pretty hard tier break as well. So, to get him there is pretty good, I thought.
Yeah, getting him there is kind of like I bet Goofy was like, oh, all right, he was the guy I wanted earlier in this round at 5, but I reached on 5, got a running back, and the guy I wanted fell to me at 18.
Yeah, the guy ran a 4.41 140, and at that size, man.
That fast?
Yeah, he's moving, man. I mean, he's up there with some of these smaller, speedy receivers. That's and he's like I said, 6'3", couple hundred, man, couple bills. That's a fast dude right there, and good possession receiver, good contested catch guy. Yeah, he was definitely. I liked him better than some of the guys that went earlier than him too in this round, Sean. So I like that. I like that pick a lot for Goofy. And now that they can't just concentrate on Pittman. Of course, Pascal's still going to do his thing, man. You can't discount Zach Pascal whatsoever. Right. But I think Pierce, man, along with Pittman, that's going to be nice for Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, we're almost through the second round, and you got to give Goofy a hand on this draft. I mean, he really did a really good job in the first round and the second round, getting guys that's going to really benefit his team. First year in this league, he was in the playoffs. Second year, he was just out into the bottom 4, and then, man, he just reloaded, and we were all going, oh, all right, we see you, Goofy. We see you.
Yeah, his roster was aging out, and he made some moves to get some youth in there, and I think he made some decent picks. This was a good one for sure. So let's recap that.
I think a trade that we should look into maybe in a future show is that AK trade and seeing how that has benefited him.
Yeah, wouldn't be a bad idea. Well, let's recap speaking of trades, we'll recap that trade now, and we'll put the players in there and name them for in place of the picks and see what it sounds like. So we'll have Goofy Jace getting Darren Waller, Alec Pierce, and a 2023 fifth. And the Pooh Crew gets Donald Parham, Christian Watson, Tyler Algier, and a 2023 third. So now that we know all the information, what do you guys think about that?
I think it kind of evens it out a little bit. I think your change in value is going to be on what you think about somebody like Watson versus Pierce specifically, since obviously it's a you can look at a straight swap of those wide receivers, um, and then how you value tight ends in a league like ours. So, but I think it evens
Yeah,
out.
I think it's real close, like Tank Top said, but I think I might give the nod to Goofy just because of team need at tight end. Like what you just like exactly what you said, Mike. If he had Gronk and if Gronk doesn't come back, he's SOL at tight end. But he went from potentially not having a tight end to having Waller. I mean,
I think if I had
pretty
to
good.
if I had to give it a real nod, a real winner, I'd probably lean Goofy for team need, like you said, but also I like I said earlier, I think Waller's still at the bottom of a top tier of tight ends, and to fill a huge team need on your team like that with a guy like Waller in that top tier and not give up a first, I think is a pretty savvy move.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for the record, I'm going to have to go with the Pooh Crew, mainly just because of that 2023 third. I like that he's still got a decent pick back out of the whole deal. But just looking at the players that were, tight ends are a wash. Goofy needed it a whole lot more, and Puku got a good upside guy that could be, in a good offense. And I think he's got Herbert, right? He's the Herbert manager, so not a bad guy to get if he can get him into his lineup. But when I look at Alec Pierce here, I think he's the discount Christian Watson. So, he tested really well too. Not quite as good as Watson, but well enough that to get him where he got him. I think if Watson does have some issues and can't get on the same page with Rodgers early, I think Pierce is the kind of guy that can immediately get a rapport going with Matt Ryan. I think Matt Ryan is a little more humble, and he's going to make that happen. That's one of his weapons. So he's going to do everything he can to make that happen. So I like Pierce better than Algier. I think Watson probably has a higher upside overall, but Pierce may have a quicker path to that playing time. So it's close, but with that 2023 third rounder, I'm going to give the edge to the Pooh Crew, which I know for the record, we don't really like doing that on this show, but I just got to be honest. Sorry, Sean. Sorry. All right, let's move on to the next pick. So we had a trade here. I guess we'll talk about that real quick before we go over the pick. So me and Tank Top Mike did a little bit of talking. I was talking to a couple of different managers, so this is the longest I've taken for a rookie pick probably ever. I guess I can't say that because I did have those talks with Brandon when he picked Antonio Gibson in our first rookie draft. That one went overnight, but that was just one of those things where I was in Philly and didn't have a lot of time to talk anyway. But yeah, I usually make my picks pretty quickly, and this one here, man, it took me a couple hours, but yeah, we finally decided on trading Cortland Sutton straight up for pick 19. Sean, you're the innocent bystander here. What do you think?
So before the NFL draft, I thought Dotson was going to be top 5, top 8 wide receivers. I think the fact that he got drafted to Washington hurt him, but the talent for Dotson is very, very good. Super good wide receiver. Let's just hope he doesn't go the way of McLaurin. Bad luck with the carousel freaking quarterback. So if they get a good quarterback and they figure out what they want to do on offense, McScoren and Dotson are going to both benefit from this draft for Washington. And I think it was a great pick at 19. I mean, talk about upside, It just sucks that he's out in Washington.
Yeah, I think going to Washington is probably one of his biggest knocks. The other one is obviously the size, like we talked about earlier, and that's why I don't really. Obviously the size of a wide receiver you have to put some stock into. I think though that maybe we've been kind of putting a little bit too much into it. It didn't scare me off as much as some others. Anyway, I guess is what I'm getting at here. The only thing that sucked for me is, Sutton's worth more than a late second, and that really sucked to actually do. But I going into this draft, my initial first pick was pick 27. So I had my eye on a few guys that if they started to drop, I'd go after. I was comfortable trading Sutton straight up at any point. This was literally the last pick I would have done that for, which is probably why it took so long. So I guess it's a little weird to say, like, I lost value, I know that, but I was comfortable doing it at any point. And oddly enough, she is the one who actually, come on the show. You've been wanting to be on the show forever. You orchestrated the Dotson-Sutton trade. So here we go. We're talking about
manager.
We're talking
Welcome
about
to the
Dotson.
show, manager.
We're talking about Dotson for Sutton. Remember we did that when we were cooking dinner after grocery shopping.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
And
Which is part of the reason
how
it
we
took
win.
What'd you say, Mike? I didn't catch it.
She said she has no idea what we're talking about, and that's how it
We're
goes.
talking about the Dotson draft.
We
drafting,
traded Sutton for
Dotson
pick
at 19.
You thought it was a really good idea.
Well, apparently it was, so you're welcome.
He's humble too, so.
And then, no. But yeah, the value was there more so on Sutton that I probably could have, tried to have gotten more. But like I said, I was comfortable doing it at any point up until then, and it was just one of those. He was the guy I had my eye on. Like Sean said, the talent is crazy. So we'll see.
Well, Dotson is undersized. I was leery of it too. If he does really well at that size, he's going to be a little bit of an outlier. But I honestly think he's the one that can be the outlier. You got Wan'Dale Robinson, you got Calvin Austin this year in this draft. Similar athletic types and size, but I feel like Dotson is the one out of those three that can actually be the outlier, and he's a little bit taller than those guys. So I had passed on him a couple of times, and I was like, okay, I'm either getting a player I can put in my starting lineup, or I'm going to go ahead and pick Dotson. And I knew there'd be some interest because people in the know, which I think the three of us are, knew that he had fallen pretty far, and this was a prime spot to get him. And I think that's why it took me a couple hours, because there was a couple people interested in him. So I like Sutton for me. I think, Mike, we'll talk more when we get further on in the draft. We'll talk more about why I think you ended up winning the trade, but we'll tease that for a later time. But I do like getting Sutton and having him. Yeah, I do like getting Sutton and having him in my lineup. But we'll talk later about the rest of the story. So of course, pick number 9, you did take Dotson. I think we've talked it all out. We talked the trade. We talked Dotson. Or did you have any more, Sean?
Nope.
I do think best case scenario, and this is what I was thinking a little bit for me. Best case
scenario, let's go.
Is actually next year. You ready for this? Wentz is not good. We all know Wentz is not good. But Terry, McLaurin's going to want some money. He's going to want Christian Kirk money. Next year's quarterback draft is pretty loaded. So if Wentz sucks, McLaurin moves on, and they bring in a good guy. Dotson could be.
There's a big debate right now if it's paying these wide receivers Christian Kirk money or just getting these NFL ready rookies out of college, because colleges are playing NFL teams and these wide receivers are ready to hit the ground running,
They're going to have to reset that, man. And they're already working. That's why a guy like AJ Brown moves. And it's probably why McLaurin will move.
That's why Adams moves. That's why Hill moves. That's what.
I think you're right though. I think it resets, and I think if it's going to reset, it'll be really quick, and it'll be next year because we have McLaurin. You got DK Metcalf. There's a huge list of guys. Well, AJ Brown was on that list, but a big list of guys that are going to have to get paid, and if
Yeah, and it's kind of like they're already saying enough of this foolishness. We're not, you're not resetting the market there. Sorry, And the receivers are coming out more NFL ready now. So It's gonna be a rude awakening for some of these guys, but they're not gonna get the Christian Kirk money. How many Christian Kirks is in? Yeah, I love that,
That is
man.
standard now.
Yeah. All right. Good talk, guys. Let's go on to the last pick.
The
of
least
second.
surprising pick in the entire draft. Let's talk about that one.
Homer.
Yeah. Yeah, really the least surprising. We got at number 10 in the second round, Tyrion Davis Price going to Quest for 6, and that is running back San Francisco.
Well, with his first pick in the draft, he drafts a San Francisco 49er. Shocked.
I don't want to give up too much of Aaron's the behind the scenes on this pick, but
Let's hear it, man.
Sean did. I remember Aaron picked this, and you were like, "Oh, Homer pick," and Aaron's only reply is, "He has as good of a shot as anyone else."
Well, name the last 3 leading rushers in San Francisco. I bet they're not the same person.
Yeah, you can do that for 5 or 6 years.
Debo.
I mean,
yeah, Debo.
Good running back. He played on a bad LSU team. And, I mean, we were the shadow of our 19 team. So I think if he was on a better team, he probably would have gotten a little stock in the draft. But who knows? He's a big dude. He can do something. And in a running team like San Francisco is, he could be something.
I thought he would be worth like a 4th round flyer in rookie drafts, when I was looking at him before he got drafted to San Francisco. But then, man, this guy is just the perfect San Francisco system back. And if he goes to, there's a lot of teams he could have gone to where, he would have still been that 4th round flyer. But because he went where he went, definitely he jumped up on my rookie draft board. And I kind of knew he wasn't going to last to the 4th round. So I had to try to make that decision if I was going to try to get him or not. I never did get him in any of my drafts. So he was definitely sought after. And yeah, you're right. These guys, it's been a different leading rusher for 5 or 6 years now running. And, Mitchell was good last year. We thought Sermon was going to be the guy. He's, in Shanahan's doghouse for whatever reason. He may or may not get out of that doghouse. And Mitchell got hurt, played really well, but he got dinged up and missed some games. So, this guy, just like Aaron said, he's got just as good a chance as any of them, man. He's going to be perfect for that system. He's going to be a foot in the ground and get up the field kind of guy, man. He really is. I think he'll do well there.
Well, I think I can go on the record and say that the second round is really where you get your upside in players. That's where your homework really shows in, and then our next few rounds going in is kind of just all dart throws. You know who you got, you know where they're coming from, and hoping for the upside. But the second round guys, you're hoping that these guys turn into first round guys with second round capital for your team. If you guys are done.
Can I say something just for the record?
For the record, what would you like to say?
For the record, I think that looking at the 3rd round, we'll talk about that next week, of course. But I looked through it, and I still like a lot of the guys, and I looked at past drafts, and again, I think because of the depth and some of these guys not coming out when they were supposed to, I kind of like this 3rd round. I like a lot of guys in the 3rd round. So for the record, I think it's going to be an interesting, more than a dart throw, interesting kind of talk, I think.
Yeah, I think we were talking about.
I'm going to say right now, the guy that was drafted at 27 is a sneaky good pick. Just saying.
There's a fun story about that pick. Maybe I'll tell you about it later.
Tell us about what later? I didn't.
That's Zamir White, right? I don't have the draft up anymore.
Oh yeah. Well, that's it may or may not be what I was alluding to for you winning the trade. But we'll talk about that next week. So for the record, I'm done.
But yeah, I think we talked about we talked about earlier about how this draft, maybe we thought wasn't going to be as good. If you look at last year when we broke down the draft, we did the full first round, and then we did like the second and third, whatever after that. We got 2 full episodes talking about an individual's draft. It's pretty good.
First 20 picks. Yeah. Yeah. It was worth
So
it.
if you come to me next year and be like, "Oh, this draft class isn't going to be that great," I'm going to just stop all trade talks because you're an idiot. I'm not listening to that BS. You know what is not BS? Ian, you suck.